In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome to our Veterans Week live shows every night this week. Up until Thursday, we'll have live shows with awesome veterans to share their journey, their story, and what, of course, they're doing now with the world. Tonight, we have a real good one, an awesome story. He gone through a roller coaster in his life, but his story, I'm going to let him share that with you. I don't want to share his whole story, but he is currently the CEO of Southern Cross. After 13 years in the Marine Corps, most notably under the Marine Special Operations Command MARSOC Raiders, where he spent the majority of his time in the service. In total, he conducted 7 deployments overseas, 4 in combat, and then 3 in non-combat in support of humanitarian and intelligence-led operations. This led him to where he is today, but that is not all that has led him to this. He has an awesome story, like I said, and without further ado, let's welcome Joe Malone, U.S. Marine Corps veteran and a founder and CEO of Southern Cross. How you doing, Joe?
What's happening, Rich? I'm doing great, brother.
It's great to have you here. I think you're the first one I signed up for this week of Veterans Talks. I forget how we reached out. It was on Podmatch. We might have reached out to each other and talked to each other real quick, and you said, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do that. And that was awesome for you to jump in. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm always down to help veterans with anything, brother.
That's awesome. Like I said, your story is an amazing journey. I've read it like 4 times today to try to memorize and say I was going to say it. Then I said, no, it better come out of your mouth to tell your story, because I think it's more enlightening to the audience for you to say it than for me to say it. So, Joe, without further ado, share your journey with the Misfit Nation.
Yeah, man. So, I was raised on the southwest side of Chicago, and I got involved with a really just bad, influential group of people at an early age. Ended up running around and doing some super hard drugs, a lot of drinking at a really, really young age. And ultimately it led me to 2 choices. Either, one, I keep going down the path I was going, where I literally would have died. I've lost 9 friends. I've overdosed 3 times, before I was 18. And the other one was to follow my best friend, who wasn't in as bad of a situation as me, into the Marine Corps. And I didn't want him to go alone. This is 2005. So, the war is really kicking off. And, I went down that road, and that led me through a lot of crazy adventures, a lot of really interesting experiences. Ultimately, though, it kind of took its toll on me, ended up almost taking my life after it was all kind of said and done. And then I was able to learn a lot about the brain, neuroscience, quantum physics, and personal development. And that, that saved my life.
It's awesome when people can find that path back out of the darkness. You were living in a tent and you were putting the weapon in your mouth on basically daily, I think is what the story said. And you overcame that to find your true self and your true purpose in life is what you're doing now. So that's awesome. That's a kudos to you to see that the path you were on was not good. Follow your friend. I think his name is John, that joined the Marines first. And did you guys serve together, or did you never cross paths in the Corps?
Yeah, we never crossed paths. We had 3 years of overlapping time, but he was stationed in North Carolina when I was stationed overseas and in California. So as he got out, ironically enough, is when I went to North Carolina. So,
of course, you don't get to get a high five or anything like that,
right?
So tell us about your thoughts on how you came up with Southern Cross and getting that business going and helping others to help themselves.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, there was a lot of pushing the boundaries and the limits of how far I could really take life before it kind of ended up taking itself, by my own hands. And in the process of it all, I was just trying to think like, man, what could I do to help people? Because ultimately servitude is, like the highest form of, existence, and the highest vibrational frequency that we could have is that of gratitude. And that comes through serving others. If you ever notice when you serve other people, you have this immense feeling of positive emotion that overwhelms you. And I think that has a lot to do with what we're here for as human beings, is to serve one another in whatever capacity that is for you. But as I was trying to learn how to start a company while, dealing with my own internal demons, that is when the Marjorie Stoneman shooting took place down in Florida. And I 17 people got killed. 14 of them were in the classroom on the first floor. And so I was just sitting there thinking to myself, like, why did nobody just get out? And at that point, this was like once school shootings really started becoming like the new trend. And so being in the special operations community, we live in active shooter environments, insider threat environments. We're constantly planning for contingencies, doing atmospheric development. I mean, it's literally what we live in. We had 2 green on blue incidents for both my Afghan deployments. One of my sister teams got hit, and then the base that I was hit on another deployment had an incident. And so I thought I could help people out. And as I got out of the military, I developed a company at the time. It was called G Chief Solutions. And I wanted to just help schools develop good active shooter plans. No schools wanted my help. Talked to 57 schools. I've actually talked to more now, but I just stopped counting at this point. And none of them wanted my help. They want to do lockdowns, and I'm very anti-lockdown once the threat is inside the building. And so that kind of morphed into 2020. And then I started to say, man, people as individuals and families need this type of training and help, not just active shooter stuff, but any sort of what I call, lethality training. So discipline, mindset, lifestyle, training, and then ultimately the skill set developed as well. And so Southern Cross is the constellation that the navigators use in the Southern Hemisphere. It's like their North Star. And so in times of dark and troubled waters, I really wanted people to look to me to be like that source of guide, to give them, their direction. And ultimately, that's where Southern Cross came from.
That's awesome. It's disheartening, but not surprising that when you spoke to those 57 schools and countless more after that, they didn't want your help, because then that would be them actually admitting that they didn't have a good plan. And I think that's the big thing. It's the hard-headedness of politics that go into the school systems that many people don't understand from the outside. If lockdown is what someone said it's good, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to go out and fight it. The school shooting in Nashville last year, they did the complete opposite. They started pushing the kids out. Yes.
Thank you. Nobody has actually said that yet, because the official report, I don't think, has even come out, which is just so crazy in itself. But why do you think so little people were killed in that incident? Is because they got out.
Yes.
I mean, it's pure basic science. Like, hey, the further you are from somebody trying to shoot you, guess what? The safer you are. Freaking genius. It's crazy, man. And it's still something that I'm very passionate about to this day. For anybody watching, if you've got kids in school, challenge your kids' school's active shooter plan. And if it's a lockdown, they're a bunch of idiots. And for all my law enforcement brothers and sisters out there, I have no idea why. Some of you keep pushing it, the rest of you keep standing by idly, but this is something I'm very vocal about, and I encourage everybody else to do the same.
Definitely. And you're spot on. The reason why there was so little in Nashville, the first person killed was a school employee trying to hold the door to keep the person out.
Which is pretty gangster, by the way. That's awesome.
Yeah. He took plenty of shots to him and slowed down the person. I don't know what it was, but got in there, and then the video you see is the police actually going in. The cop was supposed to be in that area, but he heard the call and he went in there, just charged in, took charge, and did the same thing you guys would do in a firefight. I hear it coming from floor 2, you come with me. And they did the right thing.
Yeah.
If every school had that same plan that school had, we'd be in better shape right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you saw that shooter walk in the hallways, like wondering, where's everybody at? Well, everybody got out. And, I do some work for corporations now, and this is what I teach them, and it never ceases to amaze me. I've got so many videos of me teaching people, and they're just like, okay, cool. This guy says to get out. Yeah, that's what we always think too, but why does nobody ever do that? And I'm like, I don't know, man, because they have inexperienced, fear-based people teaching them. And, when you make decisions based out of fear, like for worry of going against the crowd and saying the wrong thing that's going to possibly ruin your career, fear-based decisions are never, creative and well thought out decisions. And so they're usually ineffective.
Definitely. And then they're fear-based, and they're also save my job based, most of them. So I don't want to go against the grain because politics for most school boards and school districts and stuff like that. So if you go against the grain, you're going to be out, and you won't have that, I guess, the honorary title that you have for that year or whatever you're in office.
Dude, and I've been challenging people in all these public events I've been doing. I've been challenging everybody. Teach me the science and the safety behind keeping yourself in a locked room waiting to get shot in the head. And I'm open to being convinced, I'm open to hearing other people's arguments, but nobody's been able to give me one. So
if you just open a book and go back to 1999 Columbine, what happened when those kids huddled in the library or they huddled in the cafeteria?
Most casualties all come. Look at the Orlando nightclub shooting in the bathroom of horrors. The emergency exit was less than 5 feet away from the bathrooms, but everybody kept funneling into the bath. 5 more feet. And how many of those people would have survived?
Just following. They did. That was kind of like a sheep mentality or following the herd mentality. Following the herd. Everyone went in there. I'm going in there too. Instead of going to that door that says exit on it.
Yep.
What's your biggest challenge now as you go into corporations? Is it a hard sell to sell personal safety to them or physical safety to them or personal security to them? Or is it easier now based on all these instances?
Man, it's crazy. So sometimes it's easier than other times. Usually after there's an incident, my phone starts ringing. But in the meantime, nobody ever wants to put in the investment and the time. And I don't really understand why personally, because it's not like this crazy time intensive thing. It's not a crazy financial investment, especially when you look at the costs associated with, it's like $1.3 million on average, according to the Department of Labor back in 2019. Last time they did a study like this for a workplace violence related death in an organization. 1.3 million. I'm not charging anywhere near that. In fact, I probably should be, because that's the type of value that this training can bring to you and your people. And I love teaching corporations because, when you get people in there, especially like some of these more blue collar places, first they hear they're going to active shooter training. Immediately their brain shuts off. Why? Because they've seen all the stupid, dumb, ridiculous training out there, whether it's the one extreme of it just being like some online training portal or the other extreme of some douchebag with a gun and blanks running all over the place saying, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. It's just so dumb. Yeah. The way that I like to approach this is like fire drill training. Crawl, walk, run methodology, actually there's no run technically. I only go crawl, walk. And it's slow, it's methodical, and it prioritizes evacuation to 4 pre-designated rally locations within cardinal directions. And you have to have a good visitor management and accountability system. And boom, that's it. It's done. And the first question that I always pose to corporate classes whenever I'm teaching them in their own facilities, by the way, and this has probably happened, I don't know, like 10 or 20 times, but I'll say, okay, let's talk about run, because run, hide, fight's the, horribly ambiguous guidance that the Department of Homeland Security gave out. So where do we run to if there's an active shooter that we just hear in the hallway right now? And people always go, oh, that door right there, that exit door right there. And I'll always do an assessment before I teach at these places. I'll walk around and I'll do like an assessment. And I'll say, well, where does that door go? Well, it goes outside. No, it doesn't. That has happened literally probably a dozen or 2 dozen times, where employees of the facility that I'm teaching at, that I'm visiting, they're telling me that that door right there is what's going to take them to safety. And the reality of it is that no, it doesn't. It takes you into a narrow hallway. It takes you into an adjacent building. It takes you literally into a nothing. because it's like a second story floor and it's like one of those old, like it's not even a real door anymore. And so just that right there would be enough to throw somebody for a loop in a time of great stress, to where now you have a whole group of people sitting right there in a choke point, and most likely they'll end up getting engaged. But it just depends, man. It's still a pretty hard sell when it comes to corporate training as well. Usually I'll do a lot of free events, and they'll see me at a free event and they'll go, yeah, we need that guy. And that's usually how most people will end up hiring me.
At least those people actually hire you and get the good training that they need to survive in case something like this does happen in their workplace. People don't understand workplace violence is probably the highest violence out that is there anyway. And then add in someone with a lunatic or someone that's just hell bent on killing people with a gun going into your workplace. You got to have a strategy to get out of there.
Yeah. And, I like to break it down into, there's really two main types from all the things that I've studied when it comes to workplace violence. You have intrinsic and extrinsic threats. Intrinsic meaning that it's an employee of the organization. Extrinsic meaning that it's some random person from outside of your organization. And that could also include a former employee, somebody you just terminated perhaps. So there's really two incredibly ways to effectively mitigate the likelihood of these events from ever occurring. With an intrinsic threat, you need to focus on violence prevention training. And most people will say, well, violence prevention training is, active shooter training, PowerPoint, statistics. That's not it at all. In fact, that's probably violence provoking training, because who the hell wants to sit through another damn PowerPoint? But what we need to focus on is the neurochemical disposition within the human condition. And what I mean by that is our body produces chemicals associated with feelings based off of what we perceive in our environments. So you have, let's just say, bad neurochemicals, things like cortisol and adrenaline. It's like a cocktail, right? Things that you feel when you're highly agitated. And then you have, let's say, feel-good neurochemicals, a good cocktail of like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, things like that. And you cannot be a violent person when you have elevated levels of these feel-good neurochemicals. And you cannot have elevated levels of both at the same time. You could have different mixes, but the body's always seeking balance, right? And so you either are in a feel-good state or you're in a feel-bad state. And when you have a workplace and a workforce that is constantly high stress, constantly pissed off, constantly running with these high elevated levels of negative, the bad neurochemical cocktail, you're at a much greater risk for somebody snapping one day and shooting a bunch of people, or stabbing a bunch of people, or driving a car into a bunch of people, or beating the crap out of somebody with a brick, regardless of what it looks like. The next thing is extrinsic. So the solution for that is that you have positive, engaging in-person training where you focus on leadership, team build development, and it's a fun atmosphere with a workplace violence prevention theme about it. You don't do statistics, all sorts of games you can do to work on your people's cohesion and things like that. Now, for the external factor, the extrinsic threat, then you need to have a good response plan. So if your facility requires security, like, a manufacturing plant, cool. You make sure you have a good, solid security protocol and program. If it's like a retail location, then you just make sure that you have a good response plan for your employees. Give them good situational awareness training. What is situational awareness? Don't just be vague and say, keep your head on a swivel, because nobody wants to live like that. Like break down situational awareness into the who, what, when, where, and how. Like it's super simple. It's not even that complicated. I break it down into where you look, when you look, and what you look for. That's it. 3 things is situational awareness. And when you combine that intrinsic violence prevention training with the extrinsic emergency response plan, dude, it's freaking unstoppable, man. It's been really cool to watch a lot. I work with some pretty big corporations, and it's been really awesome to watch their people catch on to it and come together and just feel like really prepared.
And once they get that aha moment, when you give them that light bulb moment when you're talking to them just as humans, and you give them that assessment, and oh man, I need to plan better. Yeah, I know me and you too. Whenever you go into a place, you're probably assessing as you're going, even if you're just going as a person, not as your work. You're just walking into, say, a restaurant or a movie theater. You walk in. The first thing I do is I find the exits. I look where the exits are right away, so I know my way out in case something happens inside, and how to get others out as well. But I'm always looking around me. I'm always planning, but not everyone has that same mindset. How do we develop that mindset for others?
That's an awesome question. And to kind of even take a step back and answer, you said I probably do as well. You're absolutely right. I do. But here's the thing is that it's not like a conscious, oh, I need to find the exits.
Right.
Oh, I need to sit with my back against the wall and find the nearest threat. What happens is our brain has two main priorities: to conserve energy, which means not burn calories, because the brain at a primitive level doesn't know we live in this luxurious, eat whenever you want type environment. It just knows, hey, don't burn energy if you don't have to. And then two is to keep you safe from death and harm, right? It doesn't want to get the body hurt because that's associated with death. So when it has these two main priorities, now the brain burns more calories per gram of body weight than any other part of the human body. It's a caloric burning machine. And in order to preserve that metabolic burning rate, what it does is it puts information into the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is a series of neural networks or pathways that are put basically on an automated behavior. So the big common theme that most people have in common with one another is driving to and from work every single day, to and from work, to and from work, to and from work. Eventually you have that day where you're kind of jaded, and then you're driving home, and then all of a sudden you're in the driveway and you're like, how the hell did I even get here? Right? Because your brain wants to conserve whatever energy it has left. And so therefore it turns the subconscious on. That comes through repetition. That's why mastery is repetition. Repetition is mastery. You need to do something over and over and over again so that the brain says, hey, I'm done thinking about this every single time consciously. Let's go ahead and program that in the subconscious. And then we could just run it on autopilot. It's like the operating system for your computer. You don't see all the mechanics that are taking place behind the scenes, but the operating system is what is keeping the computer functioning. That's your subconscious mind. So when we learn about something, and then when we perform something, and then when we do that repetitively over a period of time, so something like the Lethality University is what I'm running right now, where we teach everyday people life-saving skills, how to be your family's own hero. So we come together, we rehearse, we run training, we have analytics, we put it all in a thing. And then that way what we're doing is we're enhancing the performance-based mechanisms in the person. So, hey, they're doing it. Well, eventually when you just go out in town to eat with your family, when you're shopping, you just start to naturally scan the environment subconsciously. What does that do? That means that you're living a more present life here in the moment, and that you're aware of your surroundings, spatial awareness, which means that you're less distracted and, quite honestly, living a more fulfilled existence. Because when you're more present, everything's all about presence. All the major religions and gurus and meditations is all about being present in the moment. And when you can be more present in the moment, you can be more aware of your environment. You can enjoy your time with your kids, your wife, your family, your loved ones, your friends more. But at the same time, you're keeping everybody safer because you're subconsciously programmed to be aware of your exits, of your environment, of the things that are going to stand out in an anomalous fashion, if you will. So that's how people can begin to program their subconscious. They don't have to live a paranoid lifestyle. They can live a very prepared lifestyle. But it comes with first taking that step, educating yourself, training yourself with somebody who knows what they're talking about, and then doing it repetitively for a period of time.
Definitely. And repetition, we learned, of course, in the military, repetition is huge in the military. Everything we do is based off of repetition, and especially when you went to the MARSOC Raiders, I'm sure as you worked as a small team unit, you did a lot of things repetitiously to learn what your brother to your right and left were going to do in certain situations and what they would do when you did something in a certain situation. So getting that to set into the person who's never had to do anything or never lived on the other end of a gun, to get that in their nugget to say, hey, look, I need to start thinking this way. I'm sure that's a struggle sometimes.
I one of the best compliments I ever got was from an FBI dude who I wasn't the biggest fan of him, but we were doing some overseas contracting, and he was watching me teach this group out in Kenya. And after the day was done, he turned to me and he goes, "Man, you are one patient dude." And I really appreciated that, coming from him. And I think it really just boils down to the fact that I haven't always been like the best learner. I understand that when people are learning a new skill, that it's like developing a new pathway in an untamed forest, with bare feet. You got to walk up and down that flora, that fauna, so many times before you really start to beat that dirt pathway out. And so if a student's not getting something, I immediately fall back to myself. It's like one of my major leadership principles as well, where it's like, look, like if they're not understanding something, then it's my fault. And we got to make sure we slow things down, go through the basics, very fundamentally sound basics. And that's when you develop that good foundation and you can become proficient and reflexive when it comes for these times of great stress. So it's more of a frustration for myself. Now, if students don't listen and like they're just like purposefully, being like a douchebag or something, then I have a pretty short, temper for that, because that is infectious for the group. And
Yes.
so I make sure to put that in check really quick. But honestly, I've never had any major problems with any of my students, and I've trained thousands of people across the world at this point. Like thousands and thousands. So I'm pretty fortunate to say that because of my hard-headed inability to learn very well, I guess I have a lot of patience and understanding for the students.
That's outstanding. We've got a question from the audience. But in a world where parents don't discipline their kids and are worried about everything, how hard is it to teach them?
Yeah. So teach the parents or to teach the kids? To teach the kids?
It says them, so I guess both maybe. I don't know.
Well, so I've started working more with some youth, later teenage, 16, 17-year-olds. And man, it's all about conditioning, right? So if a parent has never really been taught, and this is a big reason why I think that it's important for parents to be disciplined. I think it's important for parents to have good physical fitness. I think that it's important to recognize your kids see everything that you do. They'll never listen to you, but they will never fail to emulate you. And if you're not keeping your life in check, then you're literally telling your child it's okay for them to not keep their life in check. And so as they grow and as those neural pathways in the brain become more solidified, it's like, man, it's going to be more and more difficult to, it's called neuroplasticity, or rewire the brain, especially for, young teenage boys. So I guess, how do you teach them? Well, it's going to be always by example. So if I had an adult with me, if I had a teen with me, I always live my life by example. One of the few things I like about social media is that it allows me the opportunity to put myself out there every single day, show people what I'm doing, living up to my word, my routines, my habits, my disciplines. The life that I claim to live and lead is 100% the life that I live and lead. And I've got nothing to hide. I'm very transparent about that. And I think, if you're a parent trying to lead a child, you need to do that. If you are somebody like myself trying to teach one or the other, that's what it's always going to boil down to is leading by example.
Definitely. I think leading by example, setting that example forward actually paves the way for a better learning lesson for all those in the group or the class, wherever you're in there. If you're just mentoring youth at an event, setting that example for them. If you were trying to hide, you wouldn't put your whole story on your website. And that's a testament to you trying to show the world that you were able to battle the demons as a young man, get your discipline and get your compass and get your side aperture right and go forward to what you're doing now. So that's a testament to you right there, and you're leading by example right there.
Yeah, thanks. And it's really just so that everybody knows, dude, like if I could do it, anybody could do it. And you hear people say this all the time. It's just a matter of fucking doing it. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to, swear or not, but it's just what it's all about. Put that first step forward and make it happen. And in all of my training, like in all of my classes, I never go back on what I preach at all. And I'm so proud of that I put it out there immediately for all the students to see. Like the easiest example for me to give you is like the weapon safety rules. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded. Keep your finger straight up and off the trigger until you're aimed and ready to fire. That's a huge one when it comes to weapons manipulation. My finger never touches that trigger or the trigger guard until I am up on target and I'm ready to shoot. And the students at first, when they hear that, they're kind of like, yeah, whatever, especially when they're newer to firearms. We naturally want to clutch our hands. It's this crazy ability that we have, but you can't. You got to keep that trigger finger straight up and off that trigger at all times. And so even through all the crazy manipulation that I'm doing, how fast I'm moving, what I'm showing the class, when I'm slowing things down, I always make sure, I don't even make sure, it's just subconscious, that my finger's straight up and off that trigger. And when they see that, they recognize it along with all the other things as well.
Definitely. Always, I guess, trigger awareness is something that's hard to instill in people, but after, like we've been saying, repetition gets you to that muzzle and trigger awareness. Don't point at something you don't want to shoot. So that's something else you need to learn. And if they understand all those principles, I think you're hitting the nugget and making sure they understand things right.
Absolutely. That's all you got to do. I moved it to 5 weapon safety rules now. My newest safety rule is know the condition of your weapon at all times. But if you do those 5 rules for guns, you'll never have an issue. Even if that thing decides to just go off on its own, guess what? It's pointed in a direction towards something that you are willing to destroy, so it doesn't matter. So no matter what, follow those 5 rules, and you'll never have any problems.
Exactly. And Joe, did you have any mentors that gave you eye-opening things for leadership, or is it just all through studies?
The military gave me a lot of horrible leaders. Very few of them. I can count them on one hand, and it doesn't even fill up my whole hand. That were actually good leaders. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, dive into that maybe for another time. But when I was starting to really understand what was going on in my brain, like why I was behaving and feeling the way that I was, doing the things I was doing, the first person, and I honestly, to this day, I still do not understand. I don't know how I came across this guy, but his name was Earl Nightingale. He's dead now. He was a radio talk show guy, talked about Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill. And I just somehow came across this dude on YouTube. And as I was listening to him, I came across Ed Millett. Ed Millett turned me into Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins turned me on to John Asseroff. John Asseroff turned me on to Bob Proctor. And like these major, awesome minds that accomplished anything. These were the people that I started to look in on and follow in and research on. I got Think and Grow Rich, and I started to really meditate on its words. I still read an excerpt from it every single day, at least, just to keep my mind on track. And I've been fortunate enough to work with people like John Asseroff now, and, hung out with him in person over at his house. And it's just so remarkable how when you truly shift your energy, the energy that you're putting out through physical exercise, the best way to change your energy, because you can't just think your way into a new vibrational frequency. You can't think your way into a new emotion, but you can physically generate a new emotion by working it out. Doing burpees, do 500 burpees and tell me you still feel the same. I guarantee you will not. Point is that, when I learned how to channel my energy, how to emit my energy, and how, the law of vibration is just like magnetism, dude, everything began to change for me so quickly. So those were like the mentors that I've had. And those are the people that I still listen to every single day.
Outstanding. If you can give the audience 3 tips to maybe make their life more safe or more secure, what would that be?
The first one's physical exercise. People do not work out enough. You need to be physically fit. You don't have to be like some jacked, ripped, dude or chick. But, like I post like these videos now, like I come across these videos and I'll post them on my Instagram where I'm like, what is going on with this dude? Like this guy, did you see the video of the baby in the stroller a couple of months ago? The wind picked up and started carrying the baby to a busy street, like 45 mile an hour, road. You did or you didn't?
I did not see that one, though.
Dude, this guy, I don't know if it was a dude or a chick, but they're like they literally couldn't even chase the baby down to save the child. Instead, they ended up falling flat on their face, and the kid was going to go die. The kid was going to die, little baby. And a good Samaritan, thank God, had the ability to run 40 steps and grab the child, the stroller, save the kid. But it's like when you're so incapable of even making a pivot and then running to go save a child from going into oncoming traffic, that's a problem. And I highly recommend that people just be honest with themselves and start to make the changes. Trust me, I've let myself go at periods of time in my life, and I got myself back on track, and it was probably the hardest thing I ever did. But it's a reality. You got to face it. And if you don't, then you're opening yourself and your loved ones up to being victimized. So physical exercise. The other thing that physical exercise does is it changes your state of vibration. Like, it just truly elevates you. That's why everybody always feels so good when they leave the gym or when they're done working out. It's because your endorphins are being elevated. That means your vibration is being elevated, which opens up life to more opportunities to you. So physical exercise is the first thing. The next thing I would say is, auto-suggestion and belief. Just think about the life that you want to live. So many people never think about how they want to live life because we're so conditioned to believe that it's out of our reach, out of our class, something that's just completely unattainable. But yet, when you listen to all these billionaires, when you talk to these multi-centimillionaires, all of them say the same thing. I never would have imagined this was possible until I started to envision it and believe it. And they have ways of going about this. So truly spend time alone in the dark, like close your eyes and picture the life that you just want to live, the greatest life possible, and then write it down. Because when you write things down, you're taking it from the abstract and you're putting it into a physical form. As stupid as it seems, guys, I've got tons of notebooks behind me up there in the top, that corner right there. Those are just some of them. I've got notebooks all over the place. I mean, I literally write in these things every single day. And it's just really important because it keeps you on track and it holds your azimuth to where you want to go. So physical fitness, and then, it's taking the time to think about the life that you really want to have, that you want to create. And then lastly, the third thing is action. So often we get caught up on just like holding on to our pennies, holding on to our money. Oh, I don't want to spend $300, $500, $1,000 on whatever it is. You're talking about personal development here, ladies and gentlemen. There is nothing in this world that is more important than your ability to develop more skills and more attributes so that you can contribute more to the world, because your income is always going to be directly correlated with the impact and the value that you are bringing to your fellow human beings. Again, you talk to all the billionaires, all the centimillionaires, millionaires, everybody always dumps a bunch of money in their personal development. That actually is my number one, the people I work with most now is executives of companies and corporations, because they as individuals know the value of personal development. And if you can have the ability to keep yourself safe, to be your family's hero, to save a life, to use justified lethal defense, that develops your confidence in all areas of your life. And therefore, it makes you more of a profound person. So take action, immense action towards your goals, towards your own personal development. Remember, it's not what you need to do to be successful in life, regardless of what that success looks like for you, but it's a matter of who you must become. And when you become the person who is capable of receiving those types of levels of success, that is when you will be successful. So physical fitness, taking time alone to really, truly visualize the life that you want, writing it down, and then taking massive action towards that goal and attaining it.
Awesome. Those are great tips, Joe. And I like all three of them. So hopefully the audience also gravitates towards them. I was getting pumped just listening to you right there. I felt like I should go. I know I'm not going to do 500 burpees. I'm past that in life, but I know what burpees do to me. So I'll do 20 and pass out and then try again later. But
there you go, man.
20 is a start, though.
Yeah.
How does someone get in contact with you to maybe hire you as a consultant or just have you on their show like we're doing right now?
Yeah. So anybody could email training@southerncross.company. That's like company is spelled out all the way. And then, they can get a hold of me through that. The most direct way is on Instagram, Joseph_Malone_official. And I respond to all those messages. It might take me a little bit because sometimes I get a decent amount of them, but that's always me responding right back to you directly. So if somebody wants to link up, do some training, join the community. I mean, dude, we've got some cool stuff going on in the Lethality University where we're starting to bring in nutritionists, physical fitness experts, other SOCOM, dudes. We got some chicks from the CIA who are doing some pretty great. I mean, just anybody and everybody to give people more well-rounded guidance on how to live a fulfilled lifestyle. So it's pretty cool. If anybody wants to get in on that, make sure you direct message me on Instagram, and I'll get you like a 50% off lifetime membership discount code.
Awesome, Joe. This has been great chatting with you tonight, and thanks for being my first guest on Veterans Week this week. And I'm really impressed with everything you're doing and have done. And I mean, your resume is awesome. Your education, that you have so many certifications, it's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing, and I think everything's going to keep in the line for you. And hopefully someday a school will say, yes, come in and show us the light, young man, and do this. So I hope that's what we see in the future.
Yeah, man, I appreciate bringing me on the show. And, if I could ever help out, never hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, brother. You have a good night.
All right, you too, man.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community. Got the privilege and opportunity to support our heroes in their time of need. Will you join us and take action?
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.